Oh man, do I love food. The LA Times even took notice after I ate at Hugo's nearly every day for 32 years. It was just blocks from my home in West Hollywood. And now I've moved to the motion picture and television fun here in Woodland Hills. And my obsession for good meals continue to simmer. Join me as I explore our food options here on the Wasserman campus. Hi, Marc.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. It's Phil Gittleman, the original foodie, and thank you so very much for taking the time and energy to spend some time with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Well, listen, as a kibitz, I'd like to order 2 O'Malley's. I'll have one while I'm waiting for the second one to be made.
Well, the question is, what kind of meat do you want on there?
Oh, that's the corned beef and pastrami.
Well, okay, so the O'Malley, it hasn't been on the menu in a while, but we still serve it. That's any kind of meat, but it's got tomatoes and dressing.
Right.
So I actually like it with brisket, but on egg bread. But don't get me wrong, I love rye bread. But when you have that mixture of Russian dressing and tomatoes, it goes really well on egg bread, but for brisket. So if you're going to have corned beef or pastrami, it might not work. You have to keep that on rye bread, I think.
Yes, I've had it on the rye bread. And I believe, isn't coleslaw in it too?
No, you're thinking of the Brooklyn.
It's the Brooklyn. Okay.
Coleslaw and Russian dressing.
Coleslaw and Russian.
Yeah. And that also, by the way, goes well with brisket on egg bread. But otherwise, if you're going to have corned beef or pastrami, it's better on rye.
Right. Well, tell me, Marc, what year is this for Canter's on Fairfax Avenue?
Okay, on Fairfax, we started on Fairfax in 1948. So that's we're going on, what is that, 73 years? Is that what it is? Something like that.
I have to get my computer going, my adding machine.
Well, we started in Jersey City, New Jersey in 1924.
Right.
And after the Depression, we moved to Los Angeles, East LA, and it was called Canter Brothers then. Oh. And in 1948, my Aunt Selma, she was just 23 at the time, decided to venture off from my grandparents and moved and actually started Canter's on Fairfax, but not in the original location. It was about 5 doors up the street. Okay. At I believe it was 439 North Fairfax.
Okay.
So right now we're at 419. But okay, so after 5 years of her doing that, my grandparents retired from Boyle Heights and they actually joined her. And then they moved down the street to where it is now, which was the Esquire Theater. That's why it's got the marquee. In front. So it used to be the Esquire Theater, which was foreign film theater. And then right there was Canter's, and next door north to us was Cohn's Deli.
Right.
Cohn's had a little fire, not a bad one, but enough to knock them down in '58, and they decided to just sell the building instead of rebuild, instead of putting it back. And my grandparents bought the building, and then we called that area the Annex because we added on. And then in 1961 we added the Kibitz Room, which is the bar, and in 1965 we added the parking lot. So nothing has really changed since then.
Well, you see, I have a sense that, I went to Fairfax High School. So for some reason, I'm thinking that during my duration at Fairfax, I graduated in winter '57, when you had the winter and summer classes.
Right.
And it seems to me that during my tenure there, that I happen to recall that Canter's opened in your present location. Am I wrong?
No. Canter's was there in the present location in 1953. So
53, okay.
But we took over the building next door in 59.
Next door, right.
So what you saw in 57, what you saw was Canter's, and then right next to Canter's was Cohn's.
Cohn's, I remember.
And then Cohn's went, like I said, they sold out to us in '58, and then in '59 we just changed it, we just made it bigger. That's all. So
for some reason, I remember Cohn's but I had them across the street from me.
No,
And they were next door to you.
they were right next to
Gotcha. Right. Because I remember the two delis there, and then all of a sudden one day, Cohen's is gone.
Well, let me tell you something. For years, I've been working 39 years at Canter's. And actually, my grandfather worked about 50 years. My dad put in about 60 years, and I'm in at 49 years. And we have cousins, my sister, and everyone else too. But for all those years, I'm kind of an historian, and I always wanted to find a menu or a book of matches or even a photo. I keep searching the internet for. I wanted to see something from Cohen's, and nothing seems to exist. But all in the same whatever reason, about a year ago, I found on eBay a pack of matches. So I instantly bought it. So I got that. And then by luck, during the pandemic, my sister dropped off an order someone, because everyone had to get their food delivered one way or the other. The person that she delivered the order to somehow was a relative of Cohen's, and they had a picture of Cohen's and you could see Canter's next to it. It was like, you could see like 10% Canter's and, 100% Cohen's. And so we just recently got it's not a big photo and it's a little blurry because she took a picture with her iPhone of it inside of a scrapbook. So she didn't do a good job in that, but it was really nice to be able to see what it looked like. So I finally got that dream fulfilled last year by seeing what it looked like.
Okay. Well, I sent out a robocall to the residents here on campus this morning, and one of my paragraphs said, "Think corned beef and gun and roses." And so you really have to tell us about your association with that incredible band. And you've got a book out called Reckless Road.
I do. It documents their first 50 gigs. So I'll tell you how that all started. I didn't know that history, but it does tie in. So I went to school. I went to 3rd Street Elementary School. And when I was in the 5th grade, Saul Hudson was in the 5th grade also, and who turned out to later be Slash from Guns N' Roses. And we met and we hung out, and he lived on Cochrane, right a block away from me. And we became pretty good, like best friends. We were kind of like hoodlums. We'd ride our bikes and just and do all kinds of crazy things. And then we lost touch for about a year because he ended up at Bancroft Junior High instead of John Burroughs. So anyways, long story short, we met back up in high school again. And so I missed him for about a year, and he had already started playing guitar, and I was already into music, and he was into music. And I just knew because he was so good at racing bikes and so good at his artwork that he'd be talented playing guitar. So I went with him that day when we met up again to see his band at rehearsal. And right away I knew that was what he was going to do. He had the talent, enough talent to no matter what, make a living playing guitar. So I stuck with him, and I helped him a little bit with odds and oddball things, whether it was, just getting them some equipment or, making sure whatever. So when he met the other guys in Guns N' Roses, I was helping them out financially with getting flyers out and paying for ads in BAM magazine and just little odds, a demo tape and maybe the banner that they hung on stage, and just oddball things and food, just to supporting them and documenting them, because I knew it was good what they were doing, and I knew that someday somebody would want to see it. So in 2008, I put out, it's a self-published book, basically by an independent publisher, and it's called Reckless Road, Guns N' Roses and the Making of Appetite for Destruction. So that's how that ties into Canter's. And coincidentally, they took their very first photo shoot at Canter's, sitting around a booth next to the Kivitz room. And you could see the hunger in their eyes, that they knew that they were a good match and that they were going to make good things from that point on. So that's how that history, how the Guns N' Roses history ties into Canter's.
Uh-huh. No. Well, then that makes a lot of sense. Now I understand clearly. How's the book doing?
Well, the book was put out by an independent publisher, so it never really did well because, the Barnes and Nobles and the Borders in those days, they'd carry one copy, and when it's sold, then they'd get another one. And so, if you signed up with a real publisher, they'd put a whole corner. They'd make a display. They would have money behind it. So, We did sell about 50,000 copies, but it should have sold a lot better. A lot of people just don't know about it. We have them at Canters. I put them on display. That's probably where you saw it. And people buy it from there, and they buy it online. And now we're doing a podcast about those first 50 gigs. So hopefully we'll move a few more books because it's important. I recorded every one of their shows, and I took pictures, and I saved the flyer and the ticket stubs and all that memorabilia. So it's a real fun scrapbook. It's glossy pages, and there's over 900 photos. So it's all you get information, but it's also a very good treasure trove of a scrapbook. Oh, it documents that history very well from their very first time Slash played his first gig all the way to when they, after their Appetite for Destruction record came out and they went on tour with bigger bands. So it's a pretty well documented. Took a little bit of OCD, which I have, to really make sure I left no stone unturned and document it well.
Uh-huh. Well, apparently, no, because a colleague here, as a matter of fact, it was Amy from Channel 22, sent me a note, and I did a little research, and there I saw the book, and it's incredible. But back to Canters now. I know it's been a really crazy time for all of our restaurants in all over the place. How are you guys doing? Did you close? I guess you had to close.
It's a miracle that we're still standing. We lost a lot of delis in the last couple of years. We were losing delis before COVID because the food cost in Delhi is about 6-7 percentages more than any other restaurant. And also the labor the labor cost is up about another 4, 5, 6 percent because of that too, because everything's made from scratch. You're making things from scratch, and it's very labor intensive. There's a lot of nuances. So we saw delis disappearing before the pandemic. Now, at the time of the pandemic, it made it a lot harder because you already have all these. It's like you're juggling 8 balls, and then somebody throws 5 more at you. And so now what happens? You have to close, but you can still sell food to go. But you got lights on and power on in a 25,000 square foot building, and you're selling, 20% of your food to go. So, you have a huge, your overhead, and you're paying insurance and, just all those hidden bills. It's impossible to make it like that. And for as long as it was, but we did it. And then on top of that, we were carrying about 50 employees. We had over 150 at the time before the pandemic. And then we had to furlough off over, more than 100 of them. But to be honest with you, we only needed about 30 to make it work. But we had people that just fell through the cracks, and they've been with us so long, and we just, we held on to them, and we made it work. But what made it even more challenging is then we noticed that the food costs started going up a lot, and not just for us, for everybody. And it made sense because people weren't working in the meat plants. People the truck drivers weren't driving. The world kind of stopped, and it made it kind of tricky. But we went through, 6-7 months like that, 8 months, maybe longer, and then we briefly opened for about 2 weeks, and then the city changed its mind, and that that was around May or June, I believe, of last year, and so we went all the way through actually Christmas. So it must have been like, maybe 9 months, 10 months, just doing to go. And, like Uber, Postmates, and DoorDash, Grubhub, all those online orders. They could call in, you could pick it up, or walk in the door and order through an online party platform. And we were there 24 hours a day, still making it work. And so we actually opened a second little remote location, which a lot of people don't know about. It's on Bundy and Santa Monica.
Oh, wow.
And that's to service that area. There's only 3 tables there, but the menu is about, maybe 2/3 of our menu, and it's limited a little bit. But it's really meant to walk in and order food to take out or to order online, and it delivers to those 4 miles in that area. Because delivery companies like that, they really only go 3 to 4 miles for the most part. So if you could find a location 8 or 9 miles away, and you have another remote location there, you could service the people in that area, and they have access to your food. And it was really good during the pandemic because not you can't go to restaurants really. So you have to order your food to go, and this way it gets delivered to you. So, you go on your iPhone or your computer, you order some food, and it's at your doorstep a half hour later. So you can't really beat that kind of service. The world has changed on how people get their food. And, now we're still there, and we're doing like close to 100 orders a day out of there, out of that little location. So, but back to Fairfax. So when we did open, we hired many people back, not all of them, because a lot of them weren't available. And we also didn't have the need for it because it was kind of a slower process. We don't just jump back into where we were. Plus, bars were still closed, and so it's like a soft opening. But now we're actually doing well. Our weekends are very strong. We still get a lot of tourists. That probably 20% of our business is tourists, because the first thing they do when they get out of LAX is they go to Canter's because they've heard about it, or they used to live here 20 or 30 years ago, and there's just one item, whether it's a black and white cookie or a bowl of matzo ball soup or a Reuben or something. Someone has, I just got to get that certain item. And they make it right, they go right to Canter. So, but the challenge now is like the produce has doubled, the meats have doubled, poultry has doubled. Many of the other items have gone up a lot. And so this is due to the truck drivers not all coming back to work yet. And so it's not really nature made. Like sometimes you'll have a storm that will wipe out a crop. And so, the price of lettuce or tomatoes will go up a lot, but that's because it's an act of God. In this case, it's more man-made because it's even though COVID is still here, we're able to function well. Most people are vaccinated, and the world is turning. But the problem is not everyone went back to work yet. And, they're still writing on that unemployment money or whatever they're doing. And so it's causing a snowball effect to all businesses. Whether you're in the plumbing business, electrical business, all those parts are, skyrocketed because of supply and demand. So, but we take a licking and keep on ticking. We own the property, and that helps. We probably would have been gone 40, 45, 50 years ago if we didn't. You have to donate the property to make it work. If you were paying, fair market value for rent, especially on the 400 block of Fairfax, you'd be paying $8, $9 a foot right now, because a lot of those, those old produce stands and those old little bakeries, they're gone. And Fairfax that block became very hip, and there's these high-end shoes and shirts and skateboard shops. And so, real estate agents, developers would love to get a hold of our property and turn it into something else, but it's in our blood, and we keep it going. And all we want to do is put food on the table for our family and pay our bills. And we have so many employees that have been there. We have one employee that's been there since 1964. So he's on 57 years. He's working only 20 hours a week now because, hey, he can't do that forever. But we have many of them. I'd say more than half have been there 20 to 30 years. And so it's like a family. You want to keep it going. It's in our blood. My ancestors would want it going, and I like it going. And so I'm third generation, but we are third and fourth generation run. And the goal is to just keep it, passing it down and making it work.
Well, I called this morning, and your sister was on the phone, answered the phone.
Uh-huh.
And so we had a very short conversation, but I was just touching base to see if there were any last minute situations. But I'm so glad that Canter's is alive and well. Your big sellers there, what seems to be the favorite? Do you track that at all?
Well, the funny thing is, we used to not track it because we weren't on a computer system. Now we are. But up until 2012, our best seller was probably a pastrami sandwich on rye. But we kind of revamped the menu, and we moved things around, and we highlighted the items that we thought are more special. And now the biggest seller is the Reuben. You can't really beat that Reuben. We bake the bread, and not too many people know how to bake rye bread the right way anymore. We make our own Russian dressing. We have a special Swiss cheese that we hand slice. When I say hand slice, we cut it on the machine, but we cut it one slice at a time, and we cut it thick. It's not the stuff you buy that's pre-sliced and, it has no flavor. You have thick Swiss cheese. You got the Russian dressing, homemade, rye bread. with our corned beef and pastrami is fabulous. And so you put that on a grill with sauerkraut, and the way that cheese melts in there, there's nothing like it. The Reuben is really the home run. The Reuben is the best sandwich we have. It's probably our most popular, but a lot of people, the second most popular item might be the matzo ball soup.
Oh.
I personally like the barley bean soup. We have a good range of burgers and salads, and plenty of. There's so many other items we have that's really good on the menu, and there's something for everybody. If you have kids, there's macaroni and cheese. Actually, now the macaroni and cheese is very popular with millennials. They're constantly ordering that, and we have just a whole. We feed a whole family. It's not like, oh, I feel like I'm pastrami, let's go to Canter's, and the kids are going, oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want deli. But there's something they can get chicken tenders, which is also, everyone's getting chicken tenders these days. Actually, it's one of our top sellers online is chicken tenders. So go figure. But we make our own salad dressings. And so we have special salads, and our potato salad and coleslaw are very good. And so you're not going to go. You could eat at Canter's every day for a month and have something different every time and still be happy.
And still be here. Well, I did a show with Alex Lovey, who has a deli out here in Calabasas called Lovey's, and Alex and his son brought in Mexican food to add to the deli world. That's
what you got to do to stay alive. You got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We put like huevos rancheros on the menu for breakfast to keep the breakfast relevant. We put in a line of deli melts, which are basically paninis, but those are lighter because you take a girl for a date and she's not going to want a big giant sandwich. So that way she can get the paninis have like 3 ounces of meat in it, but it's a lighter sandwich, but it's still deli style. So we had to do that. I mean, I started changing the menu in 1984. I added the avocado melt, which brought us in mushrooms, brought us in avocado, brought us in alfalfa sprouts, and brought us in wheat bread. Those are 4 items we didn't even have. So every time you bring a new item, once you have mushrooms, you can make a mushroom omelet, you can make a mushroom burger. Same with avocado. So over the years, every time we put out a new menu, it was usually once a year. I always made 3 or 4 items different. And to keep us relevant, not really taking away the old items, unless they were dead items from the 50s that nobody orders anymore. There was some combinations, I don't know, sour cream and potatoes. There's things that nobody orders anymore. You get rid of those dead items and you replace them with more relevant items. But at the same time, you have your staple items. Your potato pancakes is, people go crazy. That's probably our 3rd best seller for the potato pancakes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of labor to make those potato pancakes, but they're really good and they're worth it. So, our bakery, today I had a little chaos. In fact, that's why I was probably a minute or 2 late coming on. I had to ice 72 black and white cookies. Somebody ordered, probably for the Dodger game. We probably had a Dodger game party, but at the last minute, somebody called.
Sorry, that was me.
You ordered the 72 cookies?
No, but I will in the future.
Oh, that's right.
But I won't do it last minute.
You like the black and white cookie. By the way, we made blue and white cookies today too, but they didn't get the blue right. It was a little too aqua. It's got to be more of a navy blue. But okay, no big deal. I'm just a stickler for detail. But I literally had to ice. Thank God they were baked because I didn't have time to bake them. But somebody on Uber ordered 72 black and white cookies, and we just didn't have 72 black and white cookies. They might have 40 or 50, but so I actually had to go up to the bakery and ice separately the white and then the chocolate for 72 cookies, pack them, and find someone to deliver them. That's what I threw my day off. But every day you walk in there and they give you things to do that you didn't know you had. I also, coincidentally, I also, like my father before me, do the mechanical work there. So like refrigeration, plumbing, electrical, every day in a place that size. And it has nothing to do with old equipment. If old equipment doesn't break down, that's fine. It's the new equipment that breaks down. It just doesn't last as long. They don't make things like they used to. So to keep that place running, there's, over 50 different refrigeration equipment pieces. So there's this, you got to tune them up and keep them going and service them. We have 3 elevators. We have a whole roof full of, equipment running exhausts and all kinds of stuff that has to be, looked up. It has to be, you have to stay right on top of it or the place will go right down the drain. So when you have a place that size, nobody realizes it, but you have, 7 or 8 times more equipment than most restaurants. And it's open 24 hours a day. So it gets a lot of wear and tear and, things don't last forever. So we have to stock the spare parts to keep it running. So a lot of it is, your refrigerator goes out, your whole walk-in box, you need to have it up in an hour. You can't call somebody and they'll come out in 3 days from now and then, we got to order this part. And what are you going to do for a week and no refrigerator? You can't do it. So you have to really stay on top of it. And it kind of makes you a little bit of a ball and chain because you can't go anywhere because they depend on you to make sure, the oven turns on and whatever. But one thing for sure, you get a little reward when you solve a problem mentally. It's like putting a piece in a puzzle. When you fix something and it's back on running, you keep that train on the track. It makes you feel, gives you a sense of an accomplishment. Like you did something good. Because of you, now everything is running smooth.
When did you decide to go 24 hours?
Well, okay, so we were always 24 hours in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Actually, we were 24 hours until about 4 years ago. And what changed was a lot of like, let's say the fast food places like, the Taco Bells and Subways and McDonald's, they decided to stay open 24 hours, which took pressure off us. Because it used to be if you lived in Studio City and it was like, 1 or 2 in the morning, you were coming to Canter's because that was pretty much your only choice. Maybe that and the Denny's. Or if, as you know, Ben Frank's used to be on Sunset. But there's not a lot of 24-hour places open. So we were always did well then. Now everybody's open 24. I don't mean everybody, but many people are open 24 hours, many little establishments. So we don't have that demand. So we noticed about 4 years ago, really after 2:30 in the morning, we don't see much action. Maybe Friday and Saturday nights we did, but not on weeknights. So we started closing at 3 a.m. until 6 a.m. It's only 3 hours and it's not a big deal. And like I said, weekends we stayed open anyways on 24 hours. And while we closed for those 3 hours, the bakery deli were still open and takeout was still open. You could order a burger and the cook was there and make you a burger. But so we follow that now. And because of pandemic, a lot of the bars, you don't have the same nightclubs and bars that were open at one time ago, 2-3 years ago. And so we found that at 1 a.m. is a time to call it quits on for dine-in from 1 to 6. But on weekends, we stay open 24.
Uh-huh.
But don't be confused. The deli and bakery is open 7 days a week, 24/7.
And your kibitz room, are you still playing any music?
The music is starting to come back very light, not on every night. We used to have music every night. Some people, the COVID is still locking them down a little bit and they're afraid to come out. But we probably have music 3 or 4 nights a week.
Well, you've had it's an incredible location. Everybody knows Canter's. I mean, gosh, I don't think there's a soul in LA that doesn't know Canter's. Some may not have been there, but it's you folks you've really done a thing. Do you have brothers or kids, sons and daughters?
My brother passed away in 2017. My sister's there. You talked to her today. I have 2 kids. Both of them were, my daughter's still involved. My son has a different business, but he looks over and gives us advice. And he still has his, we're still using his opinion. My cousins are still around and they're involved. So it's still family run. It's definitely still family run. But back to the manufacturing part of it. So we make our own pickles. We always have. But we stopped making pickled tomatoes. It's not a big deal, but it's just a little story. We stopped making pickled tomatoes about 20 years ago because there wasn't a big demand, so we were buying them. But during the pandemic, we found we couldn't get baker's cheese. We couldn't get pickled tomatoes. All of a sudden, all these places started going out of business. We even the people that sold us the gas to run our sodas, like the CO2, they went out of business. Every week, the trucks show up and they're missing items. So it's now a hat trick just to get through the week without running out of supplies, to materials to make your your items. My grandfather, Ben Canter, told me that during the war, World War II, he had to make his own mayonnaise. You couldn't even buy mayonnaise back then because of the war. There was certain, they took everyone to fight in the war, and they weren't manufacturing certain things. And you would think mayonnaise, how difficult could that be? But they stopped making mayonnaise. So we're seeing some of the same things. I'm telling you, every week we couldn't get matzo meal last week. They even simple items like onion rings or hash browns. The truck shows up and it's empty. So you have to find another way to do it. So it's a little bit of a hat trick to juggle. Besides the problems we have to run a business, you have to juggle where we're going to get these supplies from in some cases. So it's a little crazy, but we take a licking and keep on ticking.
No, you guys are wonderful. Tell me something. You just brought it up. Your hash browns. When you couldn't get hash browns, did you start grating your own potatoes?
What we did is we've always done this in the past. A few times in the past, we ran out of hash browns. We take the same. We steam potatoes to make potato salad. Now, most people boil potatoes and it picks up water, but when you steam them, they're very dry and they suck in the dressing better. And that's why our potato salad is so good. But so after you steam them, we dice them up through a machine. And then, we were making potato salad. But now they dice them up and we're like putting them in a plastic bag and putting them on the grill for hash browns, So that's what we did those couple of days we were out of hash browns. We did, instead of doing the grated hash browns, we just did, it almost looks like potato salad, but obviously without the carrots and celery and onion. And you just throw them on the grill with, actually you could put a little onion and green pepper. It gives it a little something, but that's easy. Potato, potato you could get by, but matzo meal, you need that to make potato pancakes, which we use a lot. You use it to make matzo balls. Right. If you're out of matzo meal, you're in trouble if you're a deli. So, you could probably fake it on the potato pancake, but there's no way you're going to fake it on the matzo meal. On the matzo ball.
No, the matzo ball.
But let me tell you a quick little story. Now we'll go back. We're going to go back to 1966 when it was Hippie Haven. So it's a Neil Young story. So Neil Young was from Canada, and he met Stephen Stills in Canada. Neither one were famous, and they hit it off. They knew that musically they could do something one day. And Stephen Stills says, if you're ever in LA, look me up and we'll put together a band. So Neil Young moves out here in 1966, but he's driving a hearse to carry his equipment. And he gets to Los Angeles and he can't find Stephen Stills, but it's all right. What does he do to make a living? He figures out, didn't take him long to figure out that there's a lot of action at Canter's and there's a lot of action on the Sunset Strip. So he figured he'd use his hearse to taxi patrons back and forth for $1 a ride. And that's what he did for a living. So in essence, he was our Uber driver that we didn't know about. But the joke of it was, about 10, 15 years ago, a friend of mine that I met that's older than me said, I remember going to Canter's as a teenager and there was always a hearse parked out in there. And we used to make a joke that you're killing people off, so you need a hearse with all that heavy Jewish food. But, the stuffed cabbage. But I read this story in Rolling Stone magazine a few years back, and I pieced it all together. But so what he did was he couldn't find Stephen Stills, so he was on his way to San Francisco to start a band up there. And he, by accident, on the street, he bumps into Stephen Stills, and they put together Buffalo Springfield. So that's just one rock and roll story from the.
Wow. That's some story, Buffalo Springfield. Wow. So they're still coming around?
What,
is Neil Young still coming in from time to time?
He doesn't live that far away, but someone said they spotted him at the bar once about 20 years ago when on the Tuesday night jam that he was just sitting there checking it out. But a lot of over the years, I saw members of the Doors, and they would talk to me about how it was back in the 60s and how crazy it was. And they were thankful that we were here. And then not only that, we'd seat them because a lot of restaurants wouldn't seat hippies. They thought they were troublemakers and they would sell drugs in the bathroom or whatever. They'd run out without paying their check. But at Canada's, it was like a revolving table. Like Frank Zappa would come with a bunch of friends, start a table. And then at some point, people would come in, hey, so let's go sit with Frank. And then at some point, Frank would go home. It's time to go home, right? But the table would still be going because new people would sit. And he'd come in the next day, and the table would still be there, but with just different people. It never broke, because it was like, oh, let's go sit. We're going to hang out with our own crowd. So it was a lot. The mamas and papas and Janis Joplin and the Bird. The Birds was earlier, but you had just a lot of that. Just whatever was going on the Sunset scene ended up at Canter's one way or the other.
No, that's incredible. Well,
the Yardbirds. I saw Jeff Beck there once, and he told me that they always come. They used to love to play the whiskey because afterwards they can go to Canter's.
Sure. Well, and so have you ever had the opportunity to step this way to see the campus out here where I live?
No, I'm a ball and chain. Wait, in Calabasas?
Well, we're just, we like West Hollywood butts up against Beverly Hills. Woodland Hills butts up against Calabasas.
I play softball every Sunday in Woodland Hills on Shoup at Woodland Hills Recreation Center. So I'm
sure. That's 5 minutes from here. Yeah. Well, one day you'll have to come this way. We have been, knock on wood, for the most part, COVID-free in our 3 residents here. This is a very, very special place. And I had no idea that when I came here, and I've been here since March of 2015, that I would be doing what I'm doing. I represented talent over the years. I was on the other side of the camera. So this is all fun and games and new, but folks like yourself have made yourself available, and it's been fun, doing these kind of shows. And I've had the pleasure of having some interesting guests like you, and it's really a pleasure.
Well, speaking of COVID, knock on wood, when we were running during the middle of last year when COVID was hot and heavy, we were very lucky. 2 of our employees got COVID, but not while they were working. One was out on a knee injury, and 2 weeks out from after he stopped working, he developed COVID. And another one similar that was out of town and got it. But so we made it through though. I mean, because all you need is one. Before everyone was vaccinated, it was a lot worse. Obviously, all you needed was one to spread it across the whole thing. I mean, COVID got here in a hurry. I mean, it came in 1 or 2 states, and within 2 weeks, it was in all 50 states. So, COVID, we got very lucky during that we didn't all get knocked down with the COVID, because that would have really that actually would have stopped us. That we would have had to close for a while.
Well, Marc, I see Jen has come on, so
Phil, before you do your signature sign off,
yes,
we have been asking folks that have come on to the live show with us a couple of very difficult questions. Phil, are you okay with me asking the question?
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a difficult question.
All right, good to know. Since we are the Motion Picture and Television Fund, we've been asking people what their favorite movie is and what their favorite television series is. Now, those questions are over to you.
You're going to ask me my favorite movie? Okay. It's a movie that probably nobody knows about, but I love the Back to the Future types of movies. And this movie came out probably 15, 20 years ago. It's called Frequency.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Movie.
Most people don't know what I'm talking about, but it's one of my favorite movies anyways, because I love it. You could watch it every time. And I probably watched it 8, 10 times. And every time I watch it, I pick up on a few details that I didn't realize, because they kind of, put it in together. TV series, we've been watching a lot of Netflix stuff, and it's all good. I can't say if I have a favorite or not. There's a lot more. I mean, there's, what was good? The Queen's Gambit was good. We like that. I don't know. I can't say favorite. There's just so many of them. Right now we're watching, I think it's called Squid Game, which is insane. I don't even know why we're watching it. My wife keeps saying, let's get through this quicker so we don't have to see it anymore. And half the time she's covering her face. And I watch because I just love to see. I know it's all movie and nothing's real, so it doesn't matter anyways, but it's pretty heavy. It's pretty heavy, but
Squid Game, super heavy, and I don't know that there are a lot of people who are watching that here on campus, but it's compelling. Like you can't look away. And one of the producers for Frequency is a host of ours. He's a board member named Hawk Koch. So I'm definitely going to share with Hawk that, head to Canters and tell them that you made Frequency. And
they did a good job. They did a good job making that movie, because when people make those types of movies, they always make a lot of mistakes. And, people film at Canters a lot, and they do timepieces, from the 60s or whatever. And it's easy to do that at Canters because nothing has changed. But there's like a detail that's not right. And I pointed out to them, oh, that's all right. We don't care. In Frequency, it was just perfect. It all tied in. There was nothing brought you out of that time zone from, the 1969 or whatever it was. But so I'm just going to have to pin. I'm sure I can give you 10 more movies if I think about it. But that's the one that pops to me in as my favorite movie.
Absolutely fine. I mean, we love what comes to the top of your mind in that moment. I'm gonna take off because I'm expecting 72 black and white cookies to be delivered any moment now. But Phil, if you would do the honors, and Marc, lovely. Thanks for being with us.
No, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Marc, again, I say the same thing. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend some time with us. And I sign off my show by saying, till we eat again.
Okay, sounds fun. It's all about food. In the end, it's all about the food. It's all about the food. We do what we do so we can come home and eat the food we want. And that's what it is. It's all, in the end, it's all about food.
Thanks, Marc.
All right.
Take care. God bless.